The Blasphemous series is full of some of the strangest, most disturbing creatures in all of gaming. Its world, Custodia, is a land plagued by the will of an unfathomable, otherworldly force known as the Miracle. Its power has twisted this horrific yet beautiful 2D world into the stage for some of my favorite boss fights in any video game. In this video, we are going through both games and ranking each boss as I encountered them, from the lowest F tier to the heights of the coveted S tier. Let's start where it all began. Warden of the Silent Sorrow, the slayer of women, children, the dead, and the dying. The gargantuan creature peruses the massacred remains of the Penitent One's home, and was given the glorious task to whomp anything that attempts to crawl its way out of the mass grave. Like the cops in Demolition Man, the Warden isn't prepared to fight anyone not already dying, especially not our hero wielding the mea culpa. The fight is far too easy, but still has its charm. C tier. Tenpad, or as he's known on the streets, the Tenpad.
Bruh.
Titanic is the best word I can use to describe this boss. In sound and scope, everything is heavy. The OST is fantastic, and conveys a sense of lumbering dread. His moveset is limited, but great for an early game experience. Attentiveness and respect for the boss's moveset is paramount to success. This guy is a solid B. Angustias. A triple projectile platforming gank fight so early in the game? On paper, this really doesn't sound like it should work. But let me tell you, gooners, like pooping without peeing, it does work. The three anguishes gives you a ton to deal with all at once. Keeping your eyes peeled for their attacks, platforming up and away from the deadly rising flames, and plotting your own offense, all require your attention. On New Game Plus, this becomes the hardest boss in the game, as all speeds are nearly doubled. This fight is genuinely exciting, and an extremely enjoyable test of focus. I'll give it my first S tier. Our Lady of the Charred Visage. Custodia's favorite e-girl turned smoke show decided to burn herself with searing oil to put an end to all the simping already. Our Lady emerges from the shadows, placing her gooey brain tissue in range of the Penitent's blade. Halfway through the fight, she brings her second hand into the equation, which is more than any man can handle. Projectiles litter the screen, and this becomes a dance you need to finish quick. This is a top-notch art design with a fun fight to back it. A tier. Esdras of the Anointed Legion. Stepsister! The Velstad bellhammer-wielding family man follows El Penitente through his journey to recover the humiliations, and confronts our hero at the door of the Mother of Mothers Church. He probably didn't appreciate the impression of his sister I did earlier. His attacks are punishing and relentless. If you get caught in a bad rhythm, it can be very difficult to pull yourself out. Just keep on the rhythm and you will prevail. B tier. Melquiades, the exhumed Archbishop, a man so beloved by his people that his bones were not allowed to rest. The miracle seeing the people's devotion fused Melquiades' remains and the congregation into a permanent guardian entity. The grasping hands hold Melquiades high out of reach of the penitent's attacks. Attacking the hands temporarily lowers Melquiades and makes him vulnerable to attacks. This boss is creative and strategic, another good B tier. Exposito, Scion of Abjuration. This is what happens when a dev team hopped up on Mountain Dew and Chicken Nuggies starts designing bosses. Boss Baby was hit hard by the Custodia fentanyl crisis and was transformed into a giant tantruming fiend. The wicker serpent creature weaves around the battlefield in unpredictable fashion, launching projectiles. He is difficult to track, but a trivial fight with certain spells. Really cool conceptually, but pretty bland to engage. Our bouncing baby boy and his wicker guardian get a B tier. Kirsay, returned by the flames. A penitent like you, burned at the stake.
Did someone just say steak?
But returned by the miracle, with remarkable powers of fire. This guy can be tough, but honestly the fight isn't super interesting. In a game filled with the most imaginative monstrosities, a boss like this really doesn't stand out. That being said, he is still fun and deserves a B. Isadora, Voice of the Dead. And now for the DLC content. First up is Isadora. This is the hardest boss of the first game, and spends eternity singing to the most captive audience you can imagine, when she isn't busy removing the penitent's taint. Her spinning scythes and fire attacks are tough to deal with, and takes quite a bit of learning to get down. Timing is essential. This fight would be perfect if not for the obnoxious homing fireballs. A tier. Sierz! This is the most unique 2D boss I have ever seen. How can you capture the sheer impossible size of a sea-dwelling beast like Sierz? The incredible creature slithers up underneath the Penitent One, rising the battle higher and higher into the dark, stormy skies. Literal escalation, ladies and gentlemen. This boss is so much fun and genuinely exciting. A fair challenge too. S tier. Croissant of the Wrapped Agony. Back to the main campaign, we reached the final two bosses. Gifted virtual immortality by the Crimson Bands, the real goal of this fight is to free Croissant from the chains binding her mind and spirit. The whole massacring the Penitent One's home thing can wait. Croissant parries the player, but can also be parried, creating this fun back and forward combat. B tier. His Holiness Esrar. Knowing one of the pointy hats of the Silent Brotherhood would overthrow his rule, he ordered the execution of all its members. He would have gotten away with it too, if not for the miracle giving one of them respawn powers. Esrar has a joke of a first phase and a wall boss of the second. The third must be unlocked, but is trivial as well. It's a lackluster finish to a fantastic game. He deserves a C. Radamez, first of the Ammanitas. I'm ranking each of the 5 Ammanitas as one saucy addition to the game. These skull-faced horsewomen of the apocalypse herald the end of all things for Custodia and my 6 speedrun strat. But only a New Game Plus. Each Ammanitas has its own weapon and moveset, but it's when you reach Radamez that things really get sticky. Radamez pulls moves from the other 4 Ammanitas for one long and brutal endurance fight. These are an incredible addition to the game. Like all the Blasphemous DLCs, it's free. S tier. That's game 1. Now let's move on to game 2, which feels less creative in boss design, but hugely refines the combat and mechanics. Some of them are far and beyond what I thought capable for a 2D game. Faceless One, Chisel of Oblivion. The Warden of the Silent Sorrows, except capable of actually defeating foes that aren't handicapped. The Faceless One guards the Penitent's Coffin, making sure nothing with a face escapes. This guy only has 2 moves, but you will need to actually learn the timing of these moves to survive. He's a good second introduction to Custodia. B tier. Great Preceptor Radamez. A Goya painting come to life. This skeletal monstrosity wades waist high in sand, pursuing El Penitente with a potentially living club/snack. Halfway through the fight, Radamez spontaneously starts his new career as a mukbang streamer, consuming his club and rising to the top of the sand. You need to master the defensive timing here to survive. A really good second fight. A tier. Lesmes, Incorrupt Sacristan, and the Sleeping Infanta. Baby Ornstein in pre-cannibalism Smog is a 4 health bar, 3-phase gank fight. Again, this sounds crazy, especially early in the game, but it just works. You get each individually, giving you time to learn their moves before you have to defeat both at once. It's a good fight, just nothing amazing. B tier. Orospina, Lady Embroiderer. This one is a duel to the death, ladies and gentlemen, prison style.
Bring me them legs!
Orospina shuffles back and forward with a fencer's grace, lunging and teleporting with subtle tells. The OST is one of my favorites and perfectly syncs with the duel. Orospina begins slow and calculated with fluid strikes. Like any intelligent combatant, her pace quickens as she suffers grievous injury, and with it, so does the steady drums of war. This is exhilarating, especially when the combat tempo has essentially doubled by the end of the fight. S tier, an all-time great. Affilior, Sentinel of the Emery. Returning to the decrepit depths of the Mother of Mothers Church years later was a dream. But deep under its forgotten halls, we find a most unusual boss. Affilior, a man of many blades and crippling obsessive-compulsive disorder. Affilior's attacks are deceptive, and something about them just feels off in all the right ways. This boss is very fun due to his odd moveset and unsettling environment. A tier. Benedicta of Endless Orosa. Praying for the dead is an endless job, but someone has to do it. Continuing the peen-gripping tradition of Tres Angustias, Benedicta gives us another exciting platform boss fight. When she starts to falter, she gets mad and destroys one of the elevators, minimizing your options of avoiding all her extremely damaging attacks. I am a sucker for these fights and prefer Tres Angustias, but this one is still great. A tier. Odon of the Confraternity of Salt. Confraternity, huh? How about you confraternize
these nuts?
Odon looks awesome,
Got
but
it!
the fight itself is pretty bland.
Got it!
He summons extremely slow, moving headless mobs to help him in combat. Odon even has a move where he makes them invincible for a short time. An odd choice since I ignore them anyway. Anyone else notice his boss music almost never plays? C tier. Synodo, Hymn of the Thousand Voices. As Benedicta was Tres Angustias Part 2, Synodo is Our Lady of the Charred Visage 2.0. Visually, I think this is the most creative and disturbing boss of Blasphemous 2. A conjoined entity of many heads, where one switches to the dominant position. The final face-melting variant should pop up sooner. As it stands, Synodo is lucky to get a last phase attack off before they are defeated. I still really like this one though, and give it a B. Sipsona, Formosa Fembra. A similar boss to the last, but an obvious step down in complexity. The placement of the Formosa Fembra in this game is baffling to me. Honestly, she would be great as an early game boss, but putting her right before the ultimate test of skill in any 2D game just makes no sense. Sipsona only appears to have 3 attacks, and none of them are very hard to deal with. This boss feels unfinished, but again, looks muy Fembra. C tier. Eviterno, Father of the Penitence. Alright, get ready gamers, because nothing in this game comes even remotely close to preparing you for this fight. It's like jumping from Dark Souls 1 to Sekiro. And this is exactly what the boss feels like, a 2D Sekiro fight. Eviterno is non-stop action that requires complete focus and acid reflux. The Father of Penitence starts off very easy in first phase, but second draws the Rat Blade of Croissant, and this is where it gets wild. You will die many times learning each move and the proper response, but when it clicks, this one feels amazing. My best advice to get a grasp on his timing is to put your back to the wall literally, and first try to block and parry every single attack. You will quickly learn which ones you can't block, but most of all, with movement out of the equation, you will pick up the rhythm of the fight. This boss doesn't feel like it should be even possible in a 2D medium, yet here we are. First playthrough I hated this boss, but years later returning to it, I love it. Highest S tier, a masterfully crafted boss for any game. Devotion Incarnate. Why can't anyone ever just love the Orphan of Kos? This behemoth lipless wonder feels so easy after what you went through to get to him. Design-wise, he is crazy, but gameplay, it is simply a wall boss. He's a letdown for sure, but the game itself is one of the best. C tier. Well everyone, that's a wrap on one of my favorite video game series of all time. You may notice that every boss is ranked C or higher, and that is because I genuinely do not find a single boss to be bad in this game. No Bed of Chaos or Godskin duo here. You may also wonder as a Christian how I feel about these games, and honestly I see very little wrong with it. It is an incredible world the Game Kitchen has cooked up, and only draws on Christianity and more specifically Catholicism for ideas and iconography. You can almost see Custodia as this world separated from a true depiction of an omniscient, omnipotent God, with paradise on the other end of the dream. The good ending of Blasphemous 2 certainly seems to imply it, and just leaves me feeling good. Blasphemous 1 had incredible, game-changing DLC, and I can't wait to see what they come up with for Blasphemous 2. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and let me know what you think of Blasphemous and its bosses. Let me know where you think my tier list is whack, and comment what game I should tier list next, or what video game objects or symbols I should cast in metal. Until next time.